I'm Richard Min, and I'm a VC and angel in this community. And I'm here with Jasper. What's your story, Jasper?
Sure. So, my name's Jasper. I'm from England originally, but over the last 6 years I've been travelling and working a lot abroad on different humanitarian projects and projects about conservation, sustainability, and focusing on a plant-based diet through that time as well. I've been involved in lots of different types of work. For example, journalism, when I was working in Japan and America, but then I've worked on various other projects as well. For example, this year I was working for a big vegan food company in the UK and developing.
Food.
Yeah.
Okay. Just that's. I want to go into that,
Sure.
but go on.
Yeah, and I'm also the co-founder of a few startups.
Mm-hmm.
So they're quite exciting. And yeah, so I'm currently in Korea. Previously I was in Japan making a film because I make films and do a lot of photography as well. I like to tell stories and work in marketing and digital media.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, what is your field of research or stuff?
Yeah, so I actually suffered with a lot of mental health issues when I was a teenager.
Oh.
And then overcome those issues and focused a lot on exercise and mental well-being. So started focusing on other things instead of myself because I was the type of person that just cared about my own issues. And then when I went to Ethiopia, I was doing humanitarian work in Ethiopia. It was the complete opposite. So I had to think about other people, and that started my journey in plant-based living, but also sustainability and humanitarian issues as well. But I think my main field of research is probably relating to sustainability in general and progressing through education and through creating products to allow people to change their lifestyle in a positive way. I suffered with a lot of depression and anxiety,
Yes.
so I wouldn't leave the house. For weeks at a time I would stay in the house and play video games. So I became very anxious and I so I stopped interacting with people, stopped going outside, and through slowly building that up and changing my habits and overcoming fear, I managed to travel the world and help people and work on these interesting projects.
What year was that?
So that must have been, it was about seven years ago now. So I'm 26 now, and it was about when I was 18 or 19, I started going to the gym, for example, and started college again. So previously I failed college and I had to drop out because of my mental health issues. So yeah, it was about 7 years ago that I started to overcome those problems I was facing.
So wait, what caused you to make a startup?
Yeah. So I think starting from completely focusing on myself and my own problems to seeing other issues and then focusing on other people and other stories instead. So I like to say that my life is my message. So the things that I do and the things that I try and implement and teach people is sort of my message. So my whole lifestyle changed, and it went from focusing on my own issues to things like animal rights and sustainability and conservation and issues with water sanitation, for example. So my whole lifestyle changed, and I guess I just became really interested in people and stories through the traveling I was doing.
You got interested in people, but you were not a people person.
Yeah.
And what caused this change?
I don't know specifically, but I think it's because I was very anxious and scared of people in general. I wouldn't speak to anyone. And then after that I started to get interested in psychology, for example. And in reality we have to work with other people, so I forced myself in situations that I was very scared of, like public speaking, for example. I was very scared of even speaking to one person, never mind 10. But now, since then, I've overcome that fear and gave a TEDx speech and give presentations. And
TEDx speech?
Yeah.
Nice. What was the TEDx speech about?
So it was about my startup, and it was about conservation. So one thing I really enjoy doing is speaking to young people and educating people about the opportunities and about travel as well, because I think travel is a very good type of education.
Travel. We have some travel startups over here.
Nice.
And what are you doing in Asia, and what are you doing in Korea?
So I was just in Japan, in Okinawa, which is a small island quite close to Taiwan, and I decided to go back there because I previously worked there in 2015 as a journalist. So I decided to go back to make a film about a word called ikigai, and ikigai translates to a reason for being.
Nice.
And it relates to between 1970 and 2000, Okinawa had the oldest people in the world, the most people over 100.
Blue zone, right?
Yeah.
What is the blue zone?
Just essentially where people live really long and people have very active and healthy lifestyles. And there are various factors because of this. One reason is obviously stress. Exercise is very important. And also what we found in Okinawa making this documentary was community is a really important thing. When people have the support, when they get older, of old people or families, that's one reason why some people live longer as well, is to be able to have that support from a community. But we're speaking to people that were 97 and that loved to dance, or a 102-year-old that still kept smiling and was very positive, and we met some really interesting people that had great stories as well.
I'm a health nut.
Yeah.
And what about diet?
Yeah. So diet is one of the most important things as well. Specifically in Okinawa, they have some foods like goya, which is it's like a bitter melon sort of thing, which is it's green and it's very strong and it's very, very healthy. But I do believe young people now, their lifestyle and diet is very different.
It's changed
Yeah.
to McDonald's or something.
Yeah. So Okinawa has a lot of McDonald's, for example, and a lot of influence from America and from the West. So I think it's definitely changing. But there's also a lot of young people that are very passionate and interested in health, which is also really good to see. But yeah, so diet is a big part of my life, and that's why I chose to go vegan and just eat plants.
Vegan.
Yeah.
And junk food vegan, or vegan as in whole food, plant-based diet?
So I try to, especially when I'm in the UK or when I'm living somewhere stable. But sometimes when traveling, it is a bit harder to stick by a whole foods, plant-based diet. Because I think a lot of people like the taste of obviously sugar and these fake meats and stuff, and I think it's important that these are there on the market. But I think ideally people will just eat more plants and fruits. Okay. So that's the goal, I think, to get people towards those sorts of foods instead.
Okinawa has got sweet potatoes.
Yeah, sweet potato as well is essential part of their diet, or at least in the past it was. Yeah.
So, a vegan, do you hold the health food or animal rights, or just in general?
So I first went vegetarian when I was 17, and originally it was for the animals, because I realized when I was a child I loved animals. You know, I went to the farm and spent time with pigs and cows and dogs, and I just started to see them as the same. So I went vegetarian at first, and then later went vegan for more environmental and also animal rights reasons as well.
Okay.
But also I felt a lot better physically and mentally. So I think people need to do research and look at studies and statistics. It's very important, but I think also people need to test things and see how their body feels, because everyone has different immune systems and digestive systems. So I think it's good to experiment with different foods, and that's what I've done over the last 8 years. And research is very important as well.
So what do you eat?
Generally, I just eat a lot of fruit.
Okay.
So I also run quite a lot at the moment as well. I'm very big into running. And I always feel better generally when I eat a lot of fruit.
What is your film about?
To summarize it, I think it's to try and understand longevity, to understand why these people lived so long, and to see if we can implement those things in our Western life as well.
What is the special sauce of the entire documentary? Yeah.
So I think this project, this documentary, focuses on specific stories. So because these people have been living so long, I think these stories will inspire people and make people understand why these people lived so long, and give an insight as well into the culture. So I think it relates to health as well, mostly, because there's, for example, in my country, in England, I think there's an increase in mental health issues, which also relates to health and well-being. And this is something I think we can learn from say, Okinawa, or from cultures around the world where they have very happy and healthy populations of people. So I was quite fortunate that my grandfather was 94 years old, and he just passed away about 9 months ago now. So I was very close to him.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. He was a very great man, and he was in World War II as a paratrooper, and he was one of the inspirations for this documentary.
Oh, so you did it for your grandfather?
Yeah, partly.
Nice. So health and your grandfather and Okinawa. I like it. And where did you get funding for it? It's the startup, or what brought you to this film?
Yeah. So currently it's self-funded. I made this film with a woman called Sandra Kimler, who is from Australia, and we both decided to go together to make this film, because sometimes when I have a good idea or something that I really want to do, I'll think about the money in the future.
Okay.
You know, I think it's really important for people to follow passion, and sometimes it's a risk. It's a risk to go to Japan and leave England behind to try and make a film. But often the best things in life come, I think, when we do make risks, and when we do make startups, or when we do quit our job to find a better job. You know, I think sometimes risks are really good. I think I'm quite lucky that I don't live in fear anymore of staying to like a normal job, or being committed to things. So yeah.
Wait, you're 3 startups in.
I think essentially they come from my general passions. So the main one that I was focusing on is essentially trying to change how conservation and sustainability is communicated.
Okay.
So that's called In Focus, and we've interviewed about 30 people, and make content and developing international partnerships at the moment.
Contents. What kind of contents?
So my dream and my vision for this project is to partner with a big environmental organisation and a big tech company. I won't mention names at the moment, and what we want to do is essentially change how conservation is communicated. So we want this equipment to go all over the world to create documentary projects from people that understand these stories best. So from scientists and marine biologists and communities, and people that are really passionate but don't have the technology to be able to tell these stories.
Okay.
And then with these stories, we'll distribute them worldwide, or we'll create specific documentaries. But yeah, this just started from my main passion, which is about conservation and sustainability. Okay. But then the other two are more about travel,
okay,
and also about plastic waste.
Plastics is
yeah
what I'm after.
Okay.
It's hard.
Yeah,
really hard.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think 0.03% of plastic in the ocean is from plastic straws.
Yeah.
But 43% of plastic in the ocean is from fishing nets. There's various issues in the ocean, but they're so important. The oceans are so important for not only animals, but obviously humanity as well. Okay. Because so many people depend on the ocean for their livelihoods.
Okay. I'm a startup guy, and what is the startup aspect to it?
Yeah, so in terms of the startup, it's a completely new project that hasn't really been done before, and because often what happens is people collect plastic from the ocean, bring it back to land, but what we'll be doing is recycling it on the ship, on board, and then condensing it into a smaller product, and then bringing it back to land to reuse and put it back into circulation.
Interesting. What stage is it?
So I'm working on this project with a man from England who worked in recycling on land before, and we've just got some funding at the moment to start developing it, but we need a bigger amount of funding to actually implement the project.
Okay.
So it's still in development stages at the moment.
Okay.
And then the other one is about travel.
Oh, okay.
So travel is also a big...
travel.
So we've developed the website and some of the app, but that's still waiting on funding as well.
Okay. The app is what?
The website is called Trevico.
Trevico?
Yeah.
Okay. Trevico. And what's the app do?
So we've got a platform where people can book travel and can book accommodation and tours, and we'll be collaborating with like eco resorts, for example, that want to promote their accommodation, but it's better to do it through us because we plant trees and we do good things with the money instead of just like developing the continuous cycle of the normal economy.
Okay.
So we're trying to create more of a sustainable way for people to travel.
Oh, okay. 3 startups: travel, film or something, and plastic, and it's a lot to do.
Yeah. So I think my problem sometimes is that I try and do too many things. Okay. Because I'm so passionate about various forms of sustainability and change. So I think I need to try and focus.
Okay.
So maybe in the next year or 2 years, I'll be focusing specifically on one of those projects.
Okay.
And if one of them succeeds quite a lot, I'll keep developing that. But I'm quite lucky that I'm quite young, and I can make mistakes. And I think it's very important to make mistakes. I think sometimes in school we're scared to make mistakes and do wrong things in exams and answer the question wrong. But I think often our best times we succeed is through failure. So I'm open to failure and welcome failure somewhat, because I think it's a really important part of the process. And I think it's really important just to try new things.
Okay, and that's the new thing. So, what do you want for an impact on the entire world? One thing.
One thing.
Yes.
In regards to me personally, I think it's everything I do is relating to progress. So instead of progressing, say, the economy, I want to try and help progress people. and work with people that are creating exciting and sustainable projects. So I think progress in general, I think, is something that I'm very interested in.
Yeah, but give me one thing.
One specific project, or
Yes. Well, I don't know. Just one thing to impact the world, and now.
yeah. So I think environment, because I think if we don't have a good environment and a good ecosystem, then, for example, food will go downhill. So I think generally things to do with the environment is what I'd want to focus on.
Yeah, but
And relating to that, about education.
okay.
So a lot of the work I've done in the past has been with photography and film. So I also take a lot of photographs and videos, and so social media, I think, is something that's quite important to me.
Social media and photography and
So empowering people.
okay.
So because it's quite easy for me to go somewhere and take photographs, I want to empower other people to do that instead. So through In Focus, my organization, I want 100 people around the world to be telling stories and to be documenting beauty, like animals and rainforests and the oceans.
Okay, so that's nice, but I'm asking the same question again, but speaking like a angel or a VC to you, what's your secret sauce to help impact the environment?
So I think visual communication is very important. So I think one of the main reasons why there's an increase in veganism in England and America, for example, is because there's so much awareness now. There's so many photographs and videos of animal rights issues, and I think the internet is an amazing tool to spread information and for people to find the truth. So I think for me it's about visual communication. So I love taking photographs and videos and educating people. So I think throughout my life and the future, when I focus on startups, I'm still very passionate about visual communication. So educating and inspiring people through photography or film or graphics, or, because I think that's one of the best ways to educate people and inspire people. Because a lot of people go vegan, or they become interested in the ocean, for example, because of documentaries like Blue Planet, which is a very popular documentary. So yeah, I think visual communication and storytelling is my main thing, and something that will.
The main thing.
Yeah.
That's good, but you'll work on it.
Yeah.
But what do you do in the far off future? 30 years from now.
Yeah, I think the world will be very different to how it is now in 30 years, because if you imagine 30 years ago, we didn't have like MacBooks, or we didn't have digital cameras that were this complex. So I think it's going to be a very different world. And for me personally, I hope to just be working on projects I'm passionate about, and also working with communities and people as well. But yeah, I think it's, even in 3 months, it's quite hard for me to imagine where I am. So 30 years, I think, because I'm constantly changing at the moment, I'm constantly doing new things that challenge me and that excite me. And mostly I think where I can have impact. So I'm trying to follow projects or people that I can have most impact with. So yeah, maybe in 30 years I'll be living on an island in a hammock, I don't know. But hopefully I'll be still working with people and working to inspire and educate and to create a more sustainable and more fair world, I think, because there's a lot of inequalities all over the world. And that's how I became interested in these things, was seeing the inequalities in Ethiopia and seeing the problems with hunger and poverty and education. So yeah, I think hopefully in 30 years I'll be more aware and have had a lot of impact. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
That's him, and you get your shit on. It's great to see you, and environmental is your ticket to impact, and it's really good. And I appreciate you, and I thank you for doing this work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you too, it's really good to see people all over the world doing these sort of things and interested in plant-based food or environment and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And good luck to you.
Thank you.
And bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.